All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that's super relevant if you're building anything on AWS, and that's the AWS Well-Architected tool. I'll admit, I used to think this was mostly for, like, the big players, massive companies. But honestly, the more I learn about it, the more I realize it's helpful for pretty much any project, big or small, even for just my own personal stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like this tool really levels the playing field. You don't need a huge team of experts or a ton of resources to benefit from these best practices that AWS has put together.
Exactly. So let's break this down. What is the AWS Well-Architected tool? What does it actually do?
Well, think of it this way. When you're building something on AWS, whether it's a simple website or a complex application, you want to make sure it's secure, it performs well, it's reliable, and it's not going to break the bank.
Right, of course.
So this tool, it's based on something called the Well-Architected Framework. Basically, this framework outlines best practices across 6 key areas: operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. And the tool, it helps you measure your architecture against these best practices.
Okay, I'm starting to see the picture here. So it's not just a checklist, right? It's more like a guide to make sure you're building things the right way from the ground up.
Exactly. It helps you identify potential issues early on before they become big problems. And it even gives you specific recommendations on how to improve your architecture. It's almost like having an AWS expert looking over your shoulder, giving you advice as you go.
Okay, that's really cool. So it's not just telling you what's wrong, it's telling you how to fix it too.
Exactly. And some people might think, oh, following all these best practices, that's going to cost a fortune. But actually, it can often save you money in the long run.
Really? How so?
Well, for example, it can help you optimize your use of resources. Like, let's say you're running servers that are way more powerful than you actually need. The tool might flag that and suggest a more cost-effective option.
Makes sense. That's something I could definitely see myself falling into.
Yeah, it happens. Or maybe you're not taking advantage of some of the cost-saving features AWS offers. The tool can point those out too. I actually had a client once who was running a bunch of servers 24/7, even though they only really needed them during business hours. We used the well-architected tool to identify that and set up some automation to shut things down when they weren't needed. Save them a ton of money on their AWS bill.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful example.
Yeah,
So it's not just about theory. This is a practical tool that can make a real difference in how you build and manage things on AWS.
absolutely. And the best part is AWS is constantly updating it, adding new features, and making sure it stays ahead of the curve in terms of best practices.
So we've talked about the framework and the tool itself, but I'm curious about the actual process. How does this work in practice? You mentioned integrations earlier. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. So the AWS well-architected tool, it doesn't just operate in a vacuum. It integrates with other AWS services like Trusted Advisor and Service Catalog App Registry.
Okay, so what do those do?
Well, Trusted Advisor is kind of like your watchdog. It's constantly monitoring your AWS environment, looking for potential security risks, cost inefficiencies, or things that just aren't configured optimally. And then App Registry helps you keep track of all your applications and make sure you're managing them in a consistent way.
Okay, so how do those tie into the well-architected tool?
So basically, the well-architected tool pulls in information from these other services, like Trusted Advisor, to give you a more holistic view of your architecture. For example, let's say Trusted Advisor flags an S3 bucket that has public read access. That's obviously a security risk. The well-architected tool would pick that up and factor it into your overall security review.
Ah, I see. So it's like having a bunch of different experts all working together to give you the best possible guidance.
Exactly. It's all about connecting the dots and giving you a comprehensive picture of your architecture, both from a technical and a best practices perspective.
This has been really insightful. The AWS well-architected tool, it's clearly not just for the big guys. It's a valuable resource for anyone building on AWS, no matter the size or complexity of your projects.
Totally agree. It's about building things the right way from the start, making sure they're secure, reliable, performant, and cost effective.
Absolutely. And it's a great way to keep learning and evolving as AWS itself changes. So to all our listeners out there, if you could use the AWS well-architected tool to review any of your existing projects, which one would it be and why? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Definitely leave us a comment and let us know. Always enjoy hearing about what you're all working on.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up our deep dive for today. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time, keep building amazing things in the cloud.
See you next time.